All right. Okay.
Pardon me, Rabbi, you are recording?
Right now I'm recording.
So if we should miss one,
All the classes are on YouTube.
I didn't realize that.
You search Sarasota Tanya, and the first two lessons are there. We have plenty of students who've listened or wanted to hear it again. A very short summary, because today, God willing, we should start the first chapter. A very short summary of what we discovered. The rabbi starts with the saying that perhaps putting in writing the proper way of living a life, serving God and living a full life is not going to meet the target. It's not going to hit the target. The rabbi is giving us three main reasons why it doesn't make sense. Number one, many times the teacher or the students are lacking knowledge, background, or the attention needed to study. When it is a teacher that teaches face to face, by the way, everything we study can be developed into many details. Those questions are not just questions about Tanya, it's about relationship, it's about day-to-day life, it's about raising children, about employees. There is so many other aspects that it can teach us. That's why I'm taking my time, even though it's specific to this. It seems to be specific for this issue, but it's not true. Says the Rabbi, there is, when you put in writing, when you have a teacher live and a student, you can assess the student and see if he's behind or ahead. You can skip a step, you can repeat a step, you can make sure the student, if he's tired, you close the book and you say, tomorrow we'll study. Well, when you put it in writing, the teacher might have not reached the level of the student, or the student might not be in the mindset of the teacher. That's issue number one. Issue number two, the Rebbe says that when you write something for the masses, for a large group of people, you're guaranteed to miss many of them. Because human beings, by nature, as we studied, if you see a group of 600,000 men, you thank God, you make a special blessing for being the wisest to create people who look fairly or generally the same, yet each one thinks that uniquely. So it's impossible, and this is unique to the human nature. It does not apply to the animal kingdom or the plants. In addition, as the Rebbe pointed out, that Joshua was blessed by God to be able to accommodate and reach the leadership level for every single man at the time. But this is unique. How is it possible for me to write down the purpose of life, to solve issues, conflicts, etc., where everyone experienced them totally different? So even if the first issue is gone, then there is another issue that it's impossible to reach everybody. And issue number three, the rabbi is saying that even though each one has a part in the Torah, but nobody knows their part. And we study that in the Torah, even though you have an argument between rabbis, the reason you have argument is because of the source of the soul, where it came from. And the classical example is brought is Hillel and Shammai. Hillel and Shammai used to argue all the time. And by the way, not Hillel and Shammai, as I said to you, Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai, the house of study of Hillel, the house of study of Shammai. Hillel and Shammai are very close and never argued. They interpreted things differently. Is there a right and wrong? They are both Torah messages. They are both Torah opinion. It all depends on the situation. So today we follow Bet Hillel. The Gemara says that we follow Bet Hillel not because they were closer to understanding God. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Bet Shammai was much sharper and much deeper thinkers than Bet Hillel. The students of Bet Shammai had to have much greater knowledge and had to have much more experience in the study of Torah, except that they were very rude, they were very strict, and therefore the Jewish people respected and adored the students of Hillel, and therefore they respected it by showing that we follow Hillel. Is it always like that? No, there are exceptions. And in addition, as I shared with you, we are told in Kabbalah that when Mashiach will arrive, then we'll follow Bet Shammai, because we'll be able to follow all the restrictions Bet Shammai tells us. So there are many, in other words, says the Rabbi, we might have the same problem. We have the same conflict. We have the same issue. And we can hear the same solution. For one person, it will work. For another person, it will make it worse. So there is no way that you can take a book to serve as guide for living a life. And by the way, this applies to all of the study of Kabbalah. If you go into Barnes and Noble or any other bookstore, you'll find how to, in the guide to dummies, you'll find Kabbalah for Dummies or how to discover Kabbalah. Usually people who are very excited, they take the book, they read a few pages, then they put it away. It does not have an impact because it's for the reasons mentioned. So says the Rabbi, how is it possible that I agree to share the teaching in a book? Shouldn't it be done face to face? We are going to go into the answer, the Rabbi's response. We're going to go into page 25, the introduction of Rabbi Weinberg. When he said it on the radio, this is the introduction. To return to the thread of our earlier argument, if even in an objective halacha, Jewish law, we find differences of opinion arising from the variety in human nature, we will surely find a variety of responses in inspirational literature. The Hasidic saying quoted above, that seen in books, even Torah books, is not the same as hearing inspiration from a teacher, seems quite justified. How then could the Alter Rebbe now propose to offer the Tanya to his followers as a substitute for the personal guidance that he had been giving them until this time? Throughout the time he was teaching them face to face. People would come for private audience with issues they had and questions. Now, suddenly he's expecting them to discover all that from a book. In answer, this is the introduction to the answer. The Alter Rebbe states that the Tanya is addressed to his Hasidim, with whom he has long-standing relationship and whose specific needs for guidance are known to him from their personal audience with him. They will therefore find the advice provided in the Tanya relevant to their individual needs. Hasidim would add that this includes all those who study in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe knew them all and addressed them himself to each one's needs in the service of God, as though they had spoken to him in private audience. As the Rebbe Rashab phrased it, to study the Tanya is to converse with the Alter Rebbe. Let me just summarize, and we're going to read it in the words of the Rebbe. The Rebbe is saying he's not going to teach nobody something new. He's just going to help you discover yourself. The Rebbe is saying that thousands of people came for guidance. Everyone felt that their issue is unique and there is nobody in the world that faces the same issue. Yet they all stem from the same topic. They all stem from the same misunderstanding or missing some information. In other words, it's not a self-help book. It is a book that gives you instructions how to discover your neshama, how to discover your purpose, how to discover who you are. Once you discover it, you can, so to say, channel it in the way that best suits you. And therefore, the Rebbe says it's impossible. It doesn't make sense for him to spend the hours on a personal level. Instead, he's going to put it in writing, and people will be able to look in, and every single person will find what they need. So, in fact, the Tanya is the Rebbe Rashab. Rebbe Rashab was the 5th Lubavitch Rebbe, explained that studying Tanya is like having a private audience with the Rebbe, because you will find that those topics are the core of the issues that we all face, each one in their own private way. Here is the way the Rebbe explains it. I speak, however, of those who know me well, each and every one of the Anash. Anash is an acronym, my followers of our country and those countries nearby, with whom affectionate words were often exchanged in private audience, and who revealed to me all the hidden recesses of the heart and minds in matters related to the service of God, which is dependent on the heart. The rabbi is saying that people talk to them about personal relations, about self-growth, about purpose of life, all those issues. They felt that this is a challenge that they face by themselves, yet the Rebbe heard it from thousands and thousands upon thousands. To them shall my words seep through, and my tongue shall take the form of a scribe's pen in these pamphlets entitled Lekutei Amarim, a compilation of teachings, being compiled from books and teachers, heavenly saints, who are well known to us. The books and teachers alluded to have been explained above in the comments on the title page, and I think I shared with you. I did not get in because you might not be familiar with, but earlier Kabbalists who composed books and many teachings, from there he was able to derive a lot of the basic principles that the rabbi is going to talk about. Some of these teachings, the wise for whom a hint is sufficient, will find alluded to in the sacred letters of our teachers in the Holy Land. He had, the rabbi is going to explain, is mentioned above, the Alter Rebbe considered certain senior disciples of the Maggid of Mezrich as his mentors, especially Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, who then resided in Eretz Israel in the Holy Land. So his teacher, his mentor, one of the mentors is a rabbi, very famous rabbi. He's buried in Tiberias. He's the student of the Mezrich Maggid, and he became his mentor, and he moved to Israel. Some of them I heard from their saintly mouths when they were here with us before they moved to Eretz Israel, to the Holy Land. All of them are answers to many questions posed continually by the Anash of our country, seeking advice, each according to his stature in the service of God, so as to receive guidance for themselves in the service of God, because time no longer permits me to reply to everyone individually on his particular query. And also, so that's one reason I have no time, the rabbi is saying, and also because forgetfulness is common. The rabbi gives us two reasons for compiling it. Number one, the time is taken away from the Rebbe because the community has grown tremendously and he has no time to respond to people individually. And number two, people forget. He says, I'm going to put it in writing. Every time you need to understand to solve a challenge, you look in the book and you'll be able to refresh your mind. I have therefore recorded all the replies to all the questions to be preserved as a sign to serve as a reminder in everyone's mind. No longer will one need to press for a private audience, for in these Lekutei Amarim, that's the name of Tanya, one will find tranquility for his soul and true counsel on everything that he finds difficult in the service of God. By the way, service of God meaning living a healthy life. Thus, his heart will be firmly secure in God, who completes and perfects everything for us. He whose mind is too limited to understanding how to derive advice from these pamphlets, let him discuss his problem with the foremost scholars of his town, and they will enlighten him. In other words, if you don't understand how to study the Tanya, you go to the leaders, people who do understand, and ask them the questions. They should direct you to the parts of Tanya that addresses the particular issue. Of these scholars, I request that they will not lay their hand upon their mouth, that is, not keep silent when asked for advice, for fear of appearing to be proud in their knowledge. The rabbi is warning people who have the knowledge and refraining from sharing the knowledge so they shouldn't feel like they are haughty or they are above the rest of the population. It is inappropriate because in Judaism, haughtiness or pride sometimes is a must. when someone has knowledge that he can part or share with others, he's not allowed to play humility and say, oh, I'm a nobody. To conduct himself with false modesty and humility, for misplaced modesty is falsehood. It is well known how bitter is the punishment for he who withholds food, that is, who withhold Torah knowledge from he who seeks it. The Talmud, the Bible tells us that someone who withholds food referring to knowledge, the knowledge of God from people who seeks it, his punishment is that God will make him forget that knowledge as well. In other words, plain humility in this place is totally unacceptable. And also, how great is the reward granted to one who provides such knowledge. This is well known from the comment of our sages on the verse, God enlightens the eyes of them both. The rabbis tell us in reverse, if someone is sharing knowledge that he knows to help someone live a better life, God will not only reward the recipient, the listener, the student, but also the teacher. The teacher, God will open up his eyes to see new light, new dimension, new understanding in what he has known already. In other words, there is something, a deeper understanding in Torah that otherwise the person would have never been able to dig on himself, but only by sharing with others he's able to be rewarded. The verse reads, the pauper and the wealthy man meet. God enlightens the eyes of them both. The Gemara applies this to a pauper in Torah knowledge and to one who is wealthy in Torah. When they meet and the wealthy one teaches the pauper, God enlightens the eyes of both of them with a light that transcends that they did not have any understanding from before. I hope so far everybody understand what we're talking about. Is it simple? Is it, Thus, God will cause his face to shine upon them with the light of the countenance of the King, which provides life. He is blessing them. May he who provides life to the living grant us the privilege of living to see the days when no longer will one man teach another to know me, for they will know me from the smallest to the greatest. When Mashiach will arrive, there will be no teachers. Everybody will know everything. For the knowledge of God will fill the earth as the water fills the sea. Amen. May this be his will. As for, now the Rabbi concludes about warning people not to print without permission. As for aforementioned pamphlets have been distributed among all the Anash mentioned above by means of numerous transcriptions at the hands of sundry and diverse copyists, at the multitude of transcriptions has given rise to an exceedingly great number of textual errors. As mentioned before, as mentioned above, the word sundry and diverse copyists may well allude to two kinds of errors, the intentional as well as the innocent. Some of it was done innocently when people were copying. Some of them was intentional to prove that the rabbi is not following the Torah. Therefore, the spirit of the nobleman mentioned on the previous page has generously moved them to make a personal and financial effort to have these pamphlets published cleared of all draws and copyist errors. Another possible allusion to the two types of errors mentioned above, with draws representing the forgeries and thoroughly checked. I congratulate them on this worthy deed. Inasmuch as the verse states explicitly, cursed be he who encroaches on his fellow's border, and this is a Jewish law that you're not allowed to encroach on someone else's business or livelihood, etc. And where the expression cursed is used, it implies both damnation and excommunication. God preserve us. It is actually superfluous to add any further prohibition on violating the copyright of the publishers. I come therefore only to reinforce the words of Scripture, a mere practice in Judea, in order to reinforce an explicit scriptural statement. invoking
Hi,
a
honey.
prohibition
How are you?
publishers against printing these pamphlets, either themselves or through the agents, without the permission of the above named, for a period of 5 years from the date that the printing is completed. May it be pleasant for those who comply, and may they be blessed with good. These are the words of the compiler of the aforementioned Lekutei Amarim. So, just to summarize, as we're ready to actually start studying Tanya, the rabbi explains, even though usually self-help and guide books do lack in many ways, here the Rebbe already knows the people that he's approaching, and in addition, he realizes that they all have the same issues, that they stem from the same source, the same place, and therefore the answer will be very, very easy for them to follow. The rabbi had put it in writing for 2 reasons. 1, forgetfulness. 2, there is lack of time.
I talked to somebody else today.
Let me mute it.
Um, Barbara Chase, and I said, oh,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. We are ready to start. Chapter 1, page 33. No questions so far? No questions. Tanya, we have learned in the Talmud Nida, end of chapter 3. An oath is administered to him. Before a Jew is born, an oath is administered to him in heaven, charging him, be righteous and be not wicked. And even if the whole world, judging you by your action, tells you that you are righteous, regard yourself as wicked. This is the first sentence of Tanya. So let's start. The first chapter of Tanya will serve as the foundation for everything that will follow through the next few chapters. In other words, there is a basis that the rabbi is going to touch upon. I'm going to give you a, so to say, an index of what we're going to be talking about. Number 1, an oath that administered to the embryo, to the fetus before he's born. Number 2, becoming righteous or wicked is never based on your action, as the rabbi will develop it. Number 3, there are 2 souls to every human being. These are the 3 items that the rabbi wants to share in chapter 1, and based on that, we are going to develop them one at a time. So let's start from the first point. The Talmud teaches us, actually, it's named, the statement is named by Rabbi Simlai, a rabbi. There is great debate. By the way, every word here, there is myriads of commentaries. I'm taking the most common and basic. The rabbi who quoted the following statement, his name is Rabbi Simlai. Yet the Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitch Rebbe, does not mention him by name, but rather he says Tanya. Tanya is Aramaic for we studied. Some say that there was a version in the Talmud without the name of the rabbi, and some say that Tanya is also, it's a name of a person, right? Have you heard of the name Tanya? Tanya is a name of an evil force, spiritual evil force, who is prevalent among scholars. I can share with you even details on that. And to break that, no, it doesn't mean that Tanya is the bad name. I'm just sharing with you. And therefore, the rabbi's purpose in this book is to allow to even the scholars to be able to find closeness with God. And therefore, he named the book Tanya. Another explanation is Tanya, if you reverse the letters, it comes out to the word Eitan. Eitan means very brave and strong. Eitan is also a Hebrew name for a boy. Eitan means strong and brave, because this book will give the strength to the human to overcome challenges. What does the rabbi tells us in that Talmud? Before a human being, we are dealing with Jews. The non-Jews have a different track, but very similar. the book was written for the Jewish people, but the messages apply universally. A human being, a soul, before it is born, is studying with an angel the Torah throughout the time. Anybody heard that before? Yeah. You heard that before. What happened when the baby is born? They give him this, and that's why you have that cling over here, and makes him forget. That's why the baby is crying when he's born. That's my added. Just before the baby is born, an angel turned to him and says, I want you to take an oath, to swear that you'll be righteous and do not be wicked. Now, first question is, it seemed superfluous. If I'm asking you to be righteous, it means that you're not going to be wicked. Why is the need to make it not be wicked? The Rabbi in chapter 14 will address it in particular. The other question is, who is taking the oath? The godly soul, the one who studied Torah the whole time, is going to take the oath. Who wants to do evil? Who wants to misbehave? Who wants to drink and party? The evil soul, the animal soul, not the godly soul. The animal soul don't get any oath. The oath applies to the godly soul, but the godly soul is not the one that wants to sin. In addition, how can you ask someone to promise before he's even born? He's perfect. At that moment, the godly soul is perfect, and there is no place to make them or to ask them to not be a wicked. Only when it's born in this universe, you can behave, you can listen to your teachers and parents, you can eat kosher and not kosher, but before you're born, you don't have those challenges. And finally, what happened if the man sinned? If the man sinned and violated the oath, is the godly soul going to be punished? Is it considered that he violated the oath? This is the Rabbi is not addressing directly. I will explain what other commentators explain over this. That actually the oath is about feeding the man with extra energy. It's an energy boost. The best way to explain that is when you make a pact between friends. In Hebrew, we call it brit, a covenant. What happens if two friends are going apart? They are moving out of town, each one starting their own business, and they want to remain friends, to always participate in one's joyous occasions. They make a pact. They say, we are making a resolution that will always remain friends. Why do you have to make that promise to one another? The reason you make that promise is that it gives you the push that when you're challenged, should I travel? Should I spend all the money to go to his daughter's wedding or to his wedding? You are going to say to yourself, but I made an oath, but I promise. If you promise, you can't break a promise. The energy of the godly soul, as we'll discover, is very young, meek, and very soft. Don't have the energy to overcome the animal soul. Those who have been on Shabbat here, I spoke that the animal soul has 7 powers. The godly soul has only 1. It's an uneven battle. It's impossible to win. In fact, as we'll discover, it's impossible to win. So therefore, we want to give it an extra boost before it's born, giving an oath, say it's a she. Later on, we'll find out why it's a she. We give the neshama, the godly soul, an oath, saying to the neshama, be righteous and do not be wicked. That's part number 1. Another one is the word oath in Hebrew is shvu'ah. Shvu'ah is an oath or a promise. Shvu'ah also means sova. Sova means satiate, to fill it up. In other words, we're not just giving the neshama an oath. This is in translation, you must speak one. because you can translate it in many, many ways. But when you read the text in the Talmud, you may read it totally different way than the way it's translated in the simple way. And the second way to interpret it, that's the Hasidic, the Kabbalistic way. You not administer an oath, you administer extra energy to the soul, so it should be righteous and not be wicked. So far, so good. Did you understand? Now we don't know the second part I just read, if it's part of the oath or it's the Rebbe's word. What the second part is, even if the whole world judging you by your action tells you that you're righteous, regard yourself as wicked, which similarly contradict the first part. The first part says, be righteous, don't be wicked. Then, even if everybody says, oh, you're a rabbi, you're a holy man, you are the best, you're very kind, you always are gentle, you never raise your voice, you always help some people, regard yourself as wicked. Be able to realize internally that you're not righteous man. Could be it is part of the oath, or could be it's the Rebbe's addition to it. We don't know, but as we'll see, there will be many questions that come up with it. So far, any questions? No questions? Okay. The soul of a Jew descends into a body for a purpose, in order to fulfill a specific spiritual mission in the world, and a non-Jew is also sent for a specific mission. To enable him to fulfill it, a heavenly oath is administered to him. He be righteous and not be wicked. And concurrently, that he regard himself as wicked and not a righteous. So he takes it that this is part of the oath. At the same time, you must be righteous and not wicked, not wicked. Realize that if everybody regards you as a righteous man, consider yourself as a wicked man. The root sheva of the verb mashbi'im, an oath is administered, is virtually identical with the root sova in the verb mashbi'im. One causes them to be sated. Accordingly, the oath charging him to be righteous and also be understood may also be understood to mean that the soul is thereby invested, sated with the power that enable it to fulfill its identity, its destiny in life on earth. Now the rabbi is going to ask a question. I want to share with you that in Hasidic teaching, questions are not that valuable as much as answers. So there are many. This is the first time I studied Kabbalah. That's what I was told. And I share it in class, in Torah classes when I teach Kabbalah, because I do think it's very powerful. The question is only to allow the Rebbe or the teacher to enter into a topic. There may be other answers, there may be different answers. But by the time you understand the topic very well, you will find that the answer is not needed. You don't even need the answer. So if I ask you a question and you have a very good answer, great, you have a very good answer. But the goal is not the question. The goal is to discover the topic so we find a good answer. The rabbi is asking a question. This calls for explanation. For we have learned in the Mishnah in tractates of our fathers teach, be not wicked in your own estimation. The Mishnah said, never consider yourself a wicked man. But we see here that the oath is always consider yourself as a wicked. It's a contradiction, simple contradiction. How then can we say that an oath is administered to the soul, that it regards itself as wicked, when this directly contradicts the Mishnaic injunction not to regard oneself wicked? So that's the first question. An oath is administered to the soul, be righteous and not be wicked. And if the entire world thinks that you're righteous, consider yourself wicked. Yet the Mishnah said, never consider yourself a wicked man. Number two, furthermore, if a person considers himself wicked, he will be grieved at heart and depressed. Rabbi is saying that if I think that I'm wicked, I'm going to be grieving, I'm going to be depressed, and I won't have the energy to live a good life. It's impossible to, we call it self-esteem. If you don't have self-esteem, nothing works. The body today, science proof, medicine proof that people get much sicker, a lot more prone to cold, to viruses, to fighting bacteria, to fighting all the ailments if they have low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is the beginning, it's the start of life. If I consider myself wicked, it means I'm a nobody, I'm no goodnik. I shouldn't be doing anything because I'm a wicked man. Then I don't have, how is it possible to live through life? And consequently, will not be able to serve God joyfully and with contented heart. The Rabbi is saying we have a mitzvah to serve God with joy. How do you serve God, as we'll discover here? Not by studying Torah, by eating, by getting married, by socializing, by going to work. This is how you serve God. You serve God by fulfilling your purpose in life. You must serve God with joy. So if I go to work and I am depressed, or I have low self-esteem, I'm not serving God. If I go to eat and I'm not happy, if I socialize, I'm not happy. If I make business decisions without joy, I'm not serving God. The beginning, the gateway to serving God is Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. By the way, you have it on top of the ark in Hebrew. It says, serve God with joy, come to him with dance. And this is from Psalm. This is the beginning of all service of God. If someone feels that they are wicked, they do not have self-esteem to serve God with joy. Apart from the previously mentioned contradiction from the Mishnah, an additional question is now raised. A cardinal principle in the service of God is that it be performed with joy. Joy at the privilege of serving him, either through performing a positive command or by refraining from that which is prohibited. How then can one be required to take an oath to consider himself a wicked when this will cause him to be depressed, making it impossible for him to serve God with joy? Joy and feeling that I'm wicked does not come hand in hand. Furthermore, just as the first part of the oath, be righteous and be not wicked, is vital to his success in realizing his life's mission, so too the fulfillment of the second part of the oath, that he considers himself wicked, is imperative. How can this possibly be so when such an attitude hinders his joyful service of God? The Rabbi is saying simply, number one, be righteous and not be wicked. And if the world tells you you're righteous, consider yourself wicked. Person contradicts the Mishnah, who says you should never feel wicked. Number two, it hinders your service of God. You cannot live a good life. You cannot pay attention. You cannot serve God without joy. And having the sense that I'm a wicked man removes all joy from my life. The Rabbi continues, while if his heart will not be at all grieved by this self-appraisal, that is, if we should propose that in order to fulfill the oath, the person will indeed regard himself as wicked, but at the same time will resolve that his wickedness shall not perturb him, so as not to encumber his joyful service of God, he may be led to irreverence, God forbid, by such an attitude which seems perturbing him for not at all. In other words, what the Rabbi is saying, I need to have a clarity here. If you tell me, we know that serving God with joy is a must. If you tell me that you consider yourself wicked, then there is no joy. You cannot have a joyful life if you know you are the worst of the worst. You have, says the Rabbi, maybe there is another choice. Telling people you can be wicked and you're still a good man. In other words, you can be wicked but still be happy. Says the Rebbe, then this goes against the very nature of serving God, because it will not stop from anybody from committing sins. What makes me do wrong? What stops me from doing wrong is the realization that what I do, my conscience bothers me. You did something wrong. God is going to demand, why did you do it? But if you're telling me that all my life I have to feel like a wicked man and still be happy, in other words, don't mind what you do, don't mind if God is angry at you, then it will cause a man not to serve God, to continuously sin. So there is this kind of a contradiction, how to interpret the oath and how to live the life. For although his original resolve that being wicked will not perturb him stems only from his sincere desire to serve God with joy, yet such a resolution may very well lead to a situation where wickedness will truly not disturb him. So that's the question the Rebbe is asking. It's more than a few, there are a few questions, but the main question is about the oath. What's the purpose of the oath? How is it possible to tell the person to consider himself wicked, even if everybody, the whole world is telling you you're righteous? Consider yourself wicked. It contradicts a Mishnah. It also is going counter to the idea of serving God with joy. If you're bothered by being wicked, you cannot have joy. If you're not bothered by being wicked, then you won't fear God and you'll continue misbehaving, saying anyway, I'm a wicked man. So we need to understand what's the oath and how does a man needs to consider himself. We start with self-esteem. This is the idea of self-esteem. However, the rabbi will not even answer directly, but will start to a discussion of the very nature of the human being. Says the Rabbi. However, the above matter will be more clearly understood after a preliminary discussion of the true meaning of righteous and wicked. The rabbi is getting into a new understanding of what righteousness and what wickedness is. I would like to survey if you can tell me when I say righteous and when I say wicked, what does go through your mind? Anybody cares to share at least three ideas, three point of views? Yes, Leon.
Righteous and then the God is so wicked.
Give me an action. What's righteous? How do you describe a righteous man in action?
He honors Shabbat.
Honor Shabbat is a righteous man. Thank you.
Charitable.
Charitable. Being charitable is a righteous man. Thank you. Being honest. Thank you. Nobody's talking about wicked. No opposite. I need examples. Anybody care to share what wicked is?
I don't know, I think it's a lack of keeping everything perfect.
Give me an example.
I, God forbid, but I don't eat everything is kosher, so.
Not keeping kosher, lying, stealing, a thief, not following the 10 Commandments. Okay? I have some news for you. The rabbi is a new revelation that until this very day in the Jewish world, I don't think anybody had brought such revelation. The rabbi is going to tell us that righteous and wicked has nothing to do with action. Action and who I am, my identity, are totally two separate things. I cannot tell you how many self-help books, things they discovered those ideas, and they are all here. And I'm dealing with the germane ideas because there is so much to cover. We're going to talk about the conflict. We're going to talk about in the eyes of others versus myself. We're going to talk about a million other things that we don't have the time. We can study it for 5 years. The goal is to finish it in 1 year. So we got to move a little fast. But I'm giving you the introduction so it's easy to digest.
You said number 2. Becoming righteous or wicked is
Right,
not based on
right.
action.
So that's what the rabbi is telling me. But he will develop it into many, many details. The point that we need to understand is being righteous has nothing to do with my action. I may violate God's commandments and I might be righteous, and vice versa. I may be very wicked, even though I keep every one of God's commandments. And as I said, this is one of the Rebbe's revelations that the whole world, I'm talking about the Hasidic people or Hasidic or Jewish world who are serious about studying of Torah, it's a great revelation that they are very excited because, and by the way, it fits with so many teachings in the Torah and addresses many other questions. The Rabbi will solve a lot of other conflicts in the Torah. Let's get to it. However, we are on page 35. The above matter will be more clearly understood after preliminary discussion of the true meaning of righteous and wicked. We find, says the Rabbi, in the Gemara, 5 distinct types: a righteous man who prospers materially as well as spiritually, he knows only good; a righteous man who suffers in both material as well as spiritual sense. Spiritually, he has not yet vanquished all his evil, and in the material sense too, he is wanting. Then we have 2 more: a wicked man in whom there is some good and who prospers, a wicked man who suffers spiritually and materially, and number 5, an intermediate man, the Beinoni. The intermediate man is going to be this book. This book is called the Book of Beinoni, the Book of the Intermediate. So we are going to, let me summarize. The Rabbi, and the Rabbi is going to, by the way, the Rabbi does not tend to bring the sources. You would just say it's in the Talmud, it's in the Zohar, but except the beginning, which is very strange, except the start. The Talmud tells us that there are 5 levels of human beings. You have a righteous man who prospers, meaning he's righteous and he's also living a very comfortable life. Both spiritually, he's always connected to God, he's in tune, and he's doing very well financially, he has friends, he is nice, he has health, he has everything. You have a righteous man who suffers, he's very righteous, he's connected to God, but things don't work as well before him. He cannot pay the bills on time. His wife is not happy with him. He may have trouble with health. There is things that, there is constantly things boil that keeps him in a very challenging mode. Then you have number 3, a wicked man who prospers, people who are wicked. They don't obey God. They don't do what's right. People don't respect them because they lie. They don't keep their word. They are not there on time. His wife is angry at them, etc. But they prosper. They make a good living. They enjoy life. Then you have wicked people who don't prosper. People who are sitting in jail, assuming they don't have cell phone there and they don't have computer, and they really suffer. Wicked people who live on earth that don't serve God and don't have this universe. They don't enjoy, nothing works for them. Their children don't talk to them, their wife has dumped them, and they are very, very unhappy with the surrounding. But then you have another one, the 5th category, the intermediate. A person that is just between the wicked and the righteous. Here is the Talmud. The Gemara explains that the righteous man who prospers is the consummate, literally complete tzaddik. The Gemara says that the righteous who prospers is a complete tzaddik, meaning, oh, here, he's going to say what it means. Once he has achieved this level, physical suffering to cleanse the soul from the impurities of sin is unnecessary. He therefore prospers materially as well. The righteous man who suffers is the imperfect, literally incomplete tzaddik. He therefore experiences some measure of material suffering, thereby cleansing the soul while it is yet clothed in the body, so that he will not have to endure any spiritual suffering in the world to come. Did everybody understand the two levels of righteous? So we have a righteous who prospers, meaning he's a complete righteous, righteous who suffers, incomplete righteous. Okay? Complete righteous means he served God in such a great level that there is only reward for him. So whenever he needs new coat, he got it. He needs to move to a bigger house, he got it. He wants to travel on a cruise, he has the money. Everything works for him because he's a complete righteous. That's what the Talmud says. Incomplete, a righteous who suffers is an incomplete righteous, meaning he has still things to overcome and fix, and therefore God is challenging him so he can cleanse or reach the level of complete righteousness. Any questions about this so far? Those two? So we have complete righteous, incomplete righteous. Complete righteous is a man who don't suffer physically, materially. Incomplete righteous, incomplete righteous is a man who does suffer. Accordingly, the Gemara is not referring to the two tzaddikim, the two tzaddiks on the same spiritual level, one of whom prospers while the other suffers. Rather, it speaks of two distinct levels of tzaddikim. The Gemara thus cites only two characterizations regarding the tzaddik, consummate and imperfect, literally complete and incomplete. The term who prospers or who suffers do not indicate his spiritual level, they merely describe his resultant material status. What the Rabbi is saying is that when we say about the two tzaddik, we have a complete and incomplete, is literally one of them suffers in this universe and the other one does not suffer in the universe. But both are called tzaddik, both are called righteous people. In Raya Mehemna is a section of Zohar, of the Kabbalah, Parshat Mishpatim. It is explained that the righteous man who suffers is one whose evil nature is subservient to his good nature. Did you understand that? Righteous man who suffers is evil inclination, his desire to cheat, to lie, to eat, even though the doctor said no, to drink, even though he knows it's dangerous to drive afterwards. The desire to do evil and bad is the evil inclination. It is subservient to his godly soul. The godly soul will rule, and the animal soul will be the subservient to the godly soul. That's what the Zohar, the Raya Mehemna, which is an addition to the Zohar, explains an incomplete righteous. Here is the Rabbi explaining it. He is a tzaddik, he is a righteous man who still retains some vestige of evil, albeit subservient to his good nature. Accordingly, a righteous man who prospers is a tzaddik in whom there is only good, since he has totally transformed his evil nature. Based on what the Zohar said, the righteous that is complete righteous has no evil, has no desire to do evil. It's not just subservient to the good, it's not there. An incomplete tzaddik is someone who is righteous, he is ruled by the godly soul, but the evil is subservient, he's there. He's causing some commotion from time to time. But the ruler, the one who is in charge, is the godly soul. Did you understand so far? This is very crucial. This is the foundation for everything we study. Yes.
So does that mean that the righteous person is someone who always does the action of what's right?
Right.
Even
Yes.
though inside there may be
Right.
some conflict, but
Conflict.
he always acts right.
Well, we'll find that there is no conflict. We'll discover later on. But yes, we will find out. The answer is yes.
What was your question? Is this what?
Ina is asking if it is predestined. I'm sorry, you may not like to hear that, but it is predestined. And the Rabbi proves it.
So you are born. So why you
Because it has nothing to do with action. And that's the goal. You have no idea how many issues people say, I'm born this way. How many times do you hear people say, I'm born this way? The Tanya tells them, so what? I was born that way too. God is not asking me to change. God is asking me to control my action, as we'll discover it. When you keep your action in line, you are perfect. You can be born a wicked man, and you still be closer to God than the righteous man, as we'll discover. I'm giving you a heads up, but it's so fascinating that most of the issues that are coming today, if you study the Tanya, and then you look at the self-help books and you say to yourself, it's watered down. It's really watered down from the real. As we'll discover the way, and this was written 300 years ago. All we need to know at this point, I appreciate the questions, but I hope that you don't lose the ideas, because as we go, we're going to go deeper. The idea right now is that a righteous man who is incomplete is one who subdues his evil. The righteous man who is complete righteous man don't need to subdue his evil. You know why? He doesn't have one. He only has godly soul. He is a tzad. According to the Zohar, of which Chaim is a part, the terms who prospers and who suffers also indicate and describe the level of the tzaddik. The tzaddik who prospers is a tzaddik in whom there is only good, the evil within him having already been transformed to good. The tzaddik who suffers is a tzaddik of low stature, one who still harbors some evil, because you call them righteous, tzaddik. You call them righteous, it means they don't do something wrong, they don't misbehave, otherwise they're not tzaddik. A tzaddik is someone who behaves properly. So how can you call someone complete and one incomplete? And the answer is, the incomplete one, he's facing challenges. The complete one faces no challenges. There is no evil. He converted it. He literally converted it to a godly soul. However, we must now understand why redundant titles are given to each level of tzaddik. Complete tzaddik and tzaddik who prospers, incomplete tzaddik and tzaddik who suffers. If the complete tzaddik is the tzaddik who prospers, that is, in whom there is only good, and the incomplete tzaddik is the tzaddik who suffers, that is, retains a vestige of evil, why then it is necessary to give each tzaddik two appellations? The commentators ask, the Talmud described in different ways, using different terminology for the same person. Why? One time you call it incomplete, another time you call it who is challenged. And one time you call him a complete one, and another time you call him a no challenge tzaddik. Why do we need that extra? The explanation provided further in chapter 10. In chapter 10, the Rabbi, I would like to stop by here, because anyway, we'll have to repeat it. So in summation, what we study in chapter 1, we have an oath that administered to the unborn child before he was born to be righteous and not be wicked. And even if the whole world tell you a tzaddik, consider yourself wicked. The Rabbi is asking, number one, the Mishnah tells us, do not be wicked. How can you be wicked? Number two, if you feel you're wicked, you have low self-esteem, you can't serve God. And if you are told, be wicked and still be happy, it will not motivate anyone to refrain from sin. It will open the gate, the floodgate for people to do whatever they want and still be happy. So the Rabbi starts by explaining there are 5 levels of human beings: 2 righteous, 2 wicked, and the intermediate. And the Gemara describes, right now we study the 2 righteous, a complete and incomplete, a one who has evil and the other who subdues his evil. God willing, in 3 weeks, we will continue. We'll go over and continue. Thank you very much for being good students.